Hello and welcome to your 22nd Django tutorial. In today's tutorial, we're going to go ahead and create our sign up view for our Master Code Online, rebuild Master Code Online. Sorry. So go ahead and open your views.py file. And in here, we need to go ahead and import our model and our sign up form that we just created. So we're going to do from models import newsletter user, there we go, and from .forms import newsletter sign up form. So now we have access to our model and to our form. All right, so we're going to create a function. This is going to be a function-based view. Get rid of that crap. So let's go ahead and define the function. So define, and we're going to call this function newsletter underscore sign up, and it's going to take one argument of request. So newsletter underscore sign up, and it's going to take a request. So what's our sign up function view going to do? First, it's going to grab data from the sign up form, all right? Because, like I said in the previous tutorial, when a user submits data via input form on our web app, it's going to go to the forms.py file, all right? So that's why we're importing forms.py file. And then it's going to go to our views, where we're going to grab the data now. So we need to grab that data from the forms.py file. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's create a variable called form. That's from form. And we're going to say newsletter user sign up form. So we're accessing that form or that class in our forms.py file. And then we're going to say request.post or none. All right. So what's the request.post? Well, first off, we get requests in views, which are passed by our urls.py file. All right. And then the .post, there is several HTTP requests, and post being one of them. Another one would be like get, and there's put. What else? Delete, connect. Anyhow, what the post does, it sends data to a server. So that's what we're doing here, is the user's passing data to our server, okay? So we're going to get the request and then .post. Now, if there is not a .post HTTP request, then we're going to return none. And the reason we're returning none is for our next line of code. So our next line of code is an if statement. So if form dot is underscore valid, do something. All right. So if the is valid function here is actually going to check to see if form data is valid. Now the form data will be valid if it's passing anything other than none. All right. So if form is valid and we pass none, it's not going to run. All right. If we pass something from post, it's going to run. Other than none. Excuse me. All right. So next thing we need to do is we're going to create another variable called instance and set that equal to form dot save. All right. And what the dot save does is grabs the data within the form and makes it usable data, if you will. All right. Now, if we don't pass an argument to save, it's actually going to throw it to the database and save it in there. But we don't want to do that yet. We want to run a check here. So what we're going to set, we're going to pass an argument that says commit is equal to false. All right, because we don't want to send it to the database without running some checks. But the dot save gives us the data we need to work with. So let's go ahead and take a look at our check. So now we're going to create a if statement. If newsletter user, all right, because we're hitting the database, dot objects dot filter, and then in here we're going to say, hey, go check the database and see if there's an email that is the same as the email we're getting passed here by the forms.py file. So we're going to say email is equal to instance.email. All right. So the instance is an object, so we're going to instance and then .email because we want to get the email. Sorry, I had like a coughing attack. Anyway, next we want to call the exist function, which is a query. It's going to query our database. So what the exist does is if it finds it, it's going to return true. If it doesn't find it, it's going to return false. Okay, so we're working with an if statement, true or false. You know, if it's true, it's going to run the next line of code. If it's false, it's going to go on to either an else statement or go on to the next bit of code. So let's just go ahead and put a print statement in here. Just print. Sorry, this email already exists. Now the user won't see this, and we'll extend this eventually, but it will pop up in our terminal. All right. Next, we're going to need an else statement. So else, and then since we're running an if statement here, if it exists. If it does not exist, we want to go ahead and save it now to the excuse me, to the database. So instance.save. All right. So basically, that's all we're doing is we're checking if it exists. If it doesn't exist, then we save it to the database. So let's go down and whoops. Now we got to add our context variable. So context is equal to, and our curly braces, and then form. And then whoops, comma, and down here we want to go ahead and create the template variable, and that's going to be the path to our HTML document that we haven't created yet. So newsletters sign up underscore or sign underscore up .html. There we go. All right, and then we just do return render request template context. Okay, so that is our sign up view. I'll see you in the next tutorial where we create our unsubscribe view.